We are live with Marcia Reynolds. Marcia, are you ready to talk?
I am always ready to talk.
Dr. Marcia Reynolds helps leaders and coaches make every conversation a difference-making experience. She has provided speaking, coaching, and training in 41 countries, has 3 award-winning books, and is recognized by global gurus as the #5 coach in the world. Dr. Marcia Reynolds, welcome to the talk.
Great. Thank you, Nathan.
Your talk is called How to Handle Precocious Women. I love this talk because there's a whole backstory with you. Your mother passed away. You were a self-proclaimed precocious woman or girl at the time. Some people called it something else. And basically, you landed in jail because of drug abuse and some other challenges at the age of 19, where you basically became a leader and let that shine through. There are all kinds of riveting, hilarious stories, in my opinion, in what you did in the jail. I love this because it's almost like a Shawshank Redemption. It's like a female version of Shawshank Redemption, and the mentor figure in the jail said, "Hey, we don't want to see you in here anymore. You got out there when you were about to be released. They said, we believe in you, but we don't want you in here anymore. Yeah. We want you to change the outside of this prison the way that you changed the inside." So Marcia, please take us behind the talk.
Well, being that it was in a women's prison, they were actually looking for what they called a bridge, because they were using a lot of the inmates. This was an opportunity for the inmates to create talks, and they did an amazing job. But they were looking for someone that doesn't just work with inmates. They were looking for someone who's actually been there, but went out and made it in the world, and was willing to talk about it. It's always fascinating to me when people say, "Well, are you sure you want to put your story out there?" And I'm like, that happened 40 years ago. If you're going to judge me now with, my multiple advanced degrees and all the work I've done, then something's wrong with you.
Well, this is the internet, so we are going to judge all kinds of things. But yeah, at the end of the day, you're pointing back, and you got 4 fingers pointing back at you.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? It's crazy. But that, I do have many degrees, but I count that time in jail one of my best degrees. Even though I ended up in a very dark place and wandering through this tunnel in my life, I grew up with, I would say, privilege. We weren't rich, but I still had privilege, much more than the women I was with. And I feel that I'm a success today because of knowing them, that it gave me a true understanding and compassion for people in all walks of life. And that I was accepted by them. and that we became very close. I'll honor those friendships, even though they told me don't ever come back and we never want to see you again. I will honor those friendships and what they taught me about myself for the rest of my life. They saved my life. I wouldn't be talking to you if it wasn't for them just opening up the covers and saying, you got to get who you are and the gifts you have, and go out there and make it.
Did you see your personality, the way that you interact, the kind of the innate bent for challenging the status quo and basically leadership? Did you see that as a gift or as like a liability or a haunting flaw until they pointed that out for you?
Well, I think all my life it's always been both. Being in a it's not just a society, but much of a world that when a woman speaks up and is rebellious and talks a lot and has opinions about everything, that it doesn't always work to our benefit. As a child, it was amazing how many times I'd be thrown in the corner for that. Or I remember in high school, even my biology teacher, I had jumped a grade and I was getting the highest grade in the class. But I was bored and talking too much. And he's like, you can't do that. You have to be the role model. I'm like, why? I want to make changes. And it's hard being a woman and being like that. And I struggled even with working in corporations with that being of who I am, and not being heard and being shut down. And so many women I've worked with, this was what my doctoral research was on, was the challenges that smart, strong women face in the workplace, not the passive and the ones afraid to speak up, but what about the rest of us? And we have so much to offer, and it's too bad that we're often not just not heard, but shut down. So I, not knowing how to be that way when I was younger, and then the times, early 70s and all the stuff going on in the world, and a lot of people speaking up and getting very disillusioned, just by the world. And but it was also that the whole thing around drugs, that's when there were a lot of drugs around. So and as we were talking before, I grew up in Arizona, so we're right on the border. And so I just kind of tripped and fell into that space. But then finding my voice again in jail, that I felt, in a place that it's supposed to rehabilitate you, but it was so dehumanizing that there was it's barely possible once you get into that system to pull yourself out. And that I wanted to make a difference. In the talk, I don't even talk about I actually tried to get a reporter to talk to them, and I got in trouble for that. And
while you were on the inside.
Yes.
They
took away my paper. They wouldn't let me have paper anymore. No papers and pens. I couldn't write letters anymore. But I felt I had to make a difference. I had to do something about how horrible this was, and not a good place to try to do that.
Yeah. Well, now your first book, if I'm not mistaken, is called Wonder Woman. Was that the first one, or was that second or third?
Actually, the first one is Outsmart Your Brain.
Outsmart Your Brain.
And then I came out with the second edition of that just last year.
Okay. So Wonder Woman is more the book that is pertinent to the themes of this particular talk, correct?
It is. And,
right.
Again, in studying the brain and wanting to know more is why I went to get my doctorate. But, when it comes time to do your dissertation, trying to find something that you can finish in this lifetime is not easy. And it was very depressing. I didn't know what I would write on. And then I heard this man speaking at a conference, and he was talking about the difference between men and women in the workplace. And he was saying men, they care so much about work, and relationships are not important until later. But women, on the other hand, it's all about relationships, and their careers are important later. I'm like, who are you talking about?
Was there a little portal of steam above your head that started formulating into a mold spot on the roof? Or
actually, I was quite happy, because I'm like, there's my dissertation. He gave me my topic. And so I started, and I had a pool of 100 women that I identified as very strong, high D dominant women that were had goal oriented, wanted to achieve things, and I found some major patterns with them, and it was fascinating. I was actually at a coaching conference and ended up sitting next to an editor from Barrett Kohler and told her about my research, and she says, I think that's a book. So that's how Wonder Woman ended up being a book from my dissertation.
I love this. This is like a theme, and this is almost like it's almost like Dr. David Banner turning into the Incredible Hulk when you cross him or pinch him or shock him or something. It seems like you go through life and try to mostly mind your own business, making change, disrupting a little bit in a good way the status quo. But then when there's somebody out there that says something that really riles you up, it can be the epiphany that really propels you forward. So once that happened, was it all that difficult? I mean, it's never going to be easy, no matter how steamed or motivated or in a good way that you are. It's never going to be easy to write a dissertation, but it sounded like the turning point happened when you sat in and heard this pontification that was off in left field.
That's crazy. Well, Nathan, the TED Talk I'm working on now that's coming up is how to use anger as a force for good. So what I got out of my experience in jail, that moment that changed my life, was that, don't give up. You have the power. You have all the gifts, you have the strengths, and you have the power to create your life no matter what obstacles you face. And so my response to that was, right, who are these people that are telling me? I mean, my probation officer actually said that I was worthless and I would never amount to anything, that I'd already screwed up my life. And she wanted to give me years in prison. So this wasn't, reverse psychology. She meant it. And what happened in that moment was she brought forward, oh yeah, I'll show you. I'll show you. And that energy, that I'll show you energy, is what's helped me to create the successes in my life.
And you had the Vickies in the prison that helped you and spoke the right belief and word and kind of kicked you out.
Kicked me out. Got in my face.
It sounded like a verbal heave-ho, right? When you were it almost seemed like the way that you tell the story almost sounded like you had cold feet and you wanted to just kind of stay in this nice, comfortable, nurturing jail. Yeah. That was anything but when confronted with that really scary. I mean, from what little I understand, I do know that the transition period is a very, very, very difficult period for so many people. So, for every person who was on the inside who was hardened against you, there was that Vicky was there for you. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting how women do tend to, find their groups and support each other, even in jail. So, she was there, but, we had become good friends. And there are actually many stories. I actually convinced her to go to GED school. She didn't have the energy for that. And we challenged each other a lot. We'd play cards all night long. I mean, there's nothing to do. And you want to sleep during the day when when the lights are on. It's just annoying. And it's a long day. So we'd stay up all night and play cards. And I was a tough challenger for her. So there's your Shawshank.
We've been enjoying this conversation with Marcia Reynolds. Her talk is called How to Handle Precocious Women. And we're going to be right back with Marcia Reynolds in just a moment, talking about Talk Universe in the Blitz Round. And we're back. It's time for the Blitz Round with Marcia Reynolds. I'm going to ask Dr. Marcia a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of her talk, and keeping in mind she's actually preparing for another talk here at the moment, so this is going to be a lot of fun. Marcia, are you ready?
Yes.
First off, were you invited to speak or did you apply?
They actually asked my coach, who said I've got the perfect person, and they said yes, she is. So it was a roundabout invitation.
Are you a memorizer, improviser, or a blender?
A blend, because for these types of talks, I memorize, but I know it so well that I deliver it as improvisation.
Were you an opener, were you a closer, or were you right there in between?
I was the opener.
What advice do you have for other openers?
Don't wear a shirt that shows sweat. Seriously, we had to edit out all the ones where I was raising my hand. I was so nervous. So it was great to be first to get out of the way. But, you know, in the morning, you're so high energy that my energy was actually way too high. So I would say do whatever you can to release some of that since it's first thing in the morning.
What's another tip, tool, or technique that helped you?
Always find the people in the audience that are smiling at you. Don't look at the people that are not.
Good tip. What was the most painful part of your talk to cut out?
Oh my God, everything I had to cut out. You know, I learned a long time ago in writing that, you know, kill your darlings. So there's those things where it's like, oh, but this is so cool. It's such a great statement. But if it doesn't quite fit with the point, you got to let it go.
Are you glad you did?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
Well, actually, another thing we had to edit out was the lighting guy was actually on the stage when we started, and it was in the video. So we actually had to start with a graphic, which never happens, but in order to cover him up. And fortunately, I had a really good one of me being a precocious child. And my first line was, I was.
Oh, that's what that, so that seemed like part of the talk.
I know.
That seemed like a slide. Well played.
Yeah, good editing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Marcia Reynolds. If you've been enjoying this, then you want to check out the talk that she gave, How to Handle Precocious Women. And you can do that by going to BeTheTalk.com, our show notes page. We're going to have a link there. And you can go there and find out more about Marcia at outsmartyourbrain.com. Find out about her books, everything else. We will have a link to outsmartyourbrain.com on our show notes page as well. And we're going to be right back in just a moment for Dr. Marcia Reynolds' final word of advice. And we're back. It's time for the final word of advice from Marcia Reynolds.
You know, when you rehearse your talk, you have to do it out loud. What I do, because I live here in this beautiful place called Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm a block from a trailhead, is I go out in the desert. And it's like, I don't care. The jackrabbits can hear me talk. And I give the talk in totality out to the world, out in the desert, over and over. So don't just practice in your head. It's not good enough. You've got your brain has to hear you speak the words in order for you to fully ingrain your talk into your head.
Marcia Reynolds, thank you so much for carving out time in your busy schedule to be on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan.